Or good evening, Gianvito. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're incredibly excited to hear from you about, how business models are evolving in China and, kind of what challenges you're seeing in China post-COVID. Good morning and good evening, everyone on the call. This is Deborah Weinswig from Coresight Research. We are very honored to welcome Gianvito D'Onghia, who is a managing partner of Creative Capital China. And he's got great background in terms of, agency and marketing. He also has, the foresight in terms of many of the challenges we're handling right now, not only in Europe, but also in the US. And he's gonna walk us through kind of what the other side might look like and give us some silver linings. For those of you joining us, we will have a transcript and a video available within 24 hours. Also, we will do a formal Q&A at the end, but if you have questions during the call, please just use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And we will launch poll questions now, which will kind of weave into our conversation during the webinar today. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Gianvito. And maybe you can just kick us off with some of your background and also a bit of a background on Creative Capital China.
Yeah. So I've been living in China since for 10 years. So I arrived 10 years ago. I have a background in terms of education in luxury fashion management and as well in branding from Bocconi University in Italy, from a great business school in the country. And then right after graduation, I came to China, and I worked over the past 8 years in consultancy, in branding and retail activation. And I joined after Altavia, which is a French group, but with a worldwide network working in retail activation and branding consultancy. So we work with both local and international brands or retailers in helping them with their branding needs in terms of storytelling, in terms of visual identity, both offline and online, and also in terms of commercial communication within the retail chains, online and offline.
Great, thank you very much. So many of us are asking ourselves this question, which is kind of during the peak of the epidemic, which most of us are in right now. Most of the retailers had to close their offline stores and move online. How did that impact their business models? Not only during the crisis, if you will, but since China's kind of on the other side of it, how is that impacting things still?
Yeah, but it has a strong impact on the offline retail chains, because, as you say, they had to close all the retail chains. But then in China, there was already an agile system put in place that led them to quickly turn their business models from offline to online. In China, actually, the O2O, online offline integration, was already quite strong even before the epidemic. But then after the hit of the epidemic, it got even stronger. And so brands reacted in two ways. On one side, they moved all the operations online, which means also managing orders online and managing deliveries online, which means also creating a logistic systems that fits what we call a worry-free narrative. So actually delivering your food or whatever you order at home without you being worried to get potentially infected, which translated into a contactless delivery. So every brand, every e-commerce platform is doing that. And in practice, it means creating, first of all, pickup points or outside the closest point of sales to your home, or even downstairs each building. So actually delivery guys, they are not allowed to enter the buildings. So there are some pickup places actually buy each building in China, where you can deliver your food or whatever you order without any contact, human contact. And this one has been also supported by an advertising by e-commerce and brands, where they make public and shared with all the consumers all the safety measurements that were behind the delivery. So all the process that the delivery guy went through, and all the temperature, body temperature check. So even when we used to order by application during the epidemic, we received a notification that shared with us the body temperature of the person that was about to deliver our food. So in terms of creating this worry-free narrative, brands has been great from this point of view.
You know, from a marketing perspective, how did they communicate this worry-free narrative and, you know, drive comfort for the consumers?
Mm-hmm. They communicated first by upgrading their content on the app, so on the apps, and as well on the WeChat page and e-commerce page of brands. So by reassuring consumers when they place an order that was about to be delivered in a very safe way, but also through live streaming sessions. It has been something that was already there in China, especially in the cosmetic industry. But then now all brands in any sector, they turn their communication and their interaction model from offline to online live streaming. And there are examples of these live streaming sessions and videos in actually any industry. So we have department stores and shopping malls organizing live streaming sessions on their platforms to share with consumers the new arrivals or discounted products. We have it as well in real estate, in retailers selling furniture. We have it as well in like sporty brands working with shopping malls, in which they even implemented a virtual tour of the stores through the apps, where people can place the orders as you were in a store. Like you experience the store online, and then you place the order after experiencing it.
Very cool. So for many people outside of China, they're not necessarily familiar with live streaming, which is, I think, having a greater impact, unfortunately, right now on commerce. Number one, can you talk about what is live streaming? You know, how does it change kind of the relationship between the brand and the consumer? And how have you seen live streaming continue to evolve in China? And anything else that you can give us on the topic and KOLs, because it's somewhat of a foreign idea to many in the West.
Yeah, so live streaming is a way to interact with consumers through live stream broadcasting and videos. There are three ways to do it in China. So we have live streaming channels directly on the e-commerce platforms, such as JD or Tmall, so where KOL and influencers working with these e-commerce platforms, they can rely on these platforms to do the live streaming sessions. And we have as well live streaming sessions directly that are run through the WeChat mini programs, or which is the WeChat account of a brand. So they run live streaming sessions using their own account. And a third way to do it that actually it's kind of new, because it started to happen during the heat of the epidemic, is creating live streaming sessions within WeChat groups. So WeChat is equal to WhatsApp for US or from Europe. So we had sales assistants or store managers that they created WeChat groups within their networks of customers, and then they started to run live broadcasting sessions with consumers online. So consumers need to register, and then they easily click on a link, and then you zoom directly into the live streaming sessions, where you have the KOL in most of cases, or the brand ambassador introducing the products, presenting the features. Then consumers can comment online, and as well they can directly place an order online.
And
And yeah.
I was gonna say, how have you seen the brands? I mean, I just as an observer saw a lot of this right on WeChat during during the crisis, and continue to see how brands evolve their interaction. And I think they really I think live streaming really, right, it kind of changed, like, the fact that we had to be socially distant. And I think it really did a lot to support the mental health of people as well. Maybe you can just dig a little bit deeper, and also maybe talk about, right, in the US we have influencers, kind of what's a KOL, and maybe some of those differences as well.
Yeah, we have so KOLs in China. Usually, there are two kinds of KOLs. There are key opinion leaders and influencers that they work for a brand, such as a brand ambassadors, or you have KOLs that they work in a specific industry, such as in cosmetics. The most famous one is Li Jiaqi. So he's considered an authority. So he decides with which brands he could or not work, and he comes from the beauty industry. He used to be a sales assistant in beauty, so he has an expertise also in knowing the product. And so he comments the products and explain why according to him is good or not. And so consumers can feel in a way that they have a more objective feedback, because he's not a brand ambassador of any brand. And we have to, there's been, in terms of narrative, a change during the epidemic, because also KOLs, they started to share a less fancy and commercial, I would say, content in terms of communication. They started to be more, to share content which is more relevant for consumers during the epidemic. To give you an example, one of the recent campaigns that has been done by Li Jiaqi was launching a line of eyeshadow, uh, because it's the only part that you can see now in China, because everyone is wearing a mask. So that's the reason why eyeshadow. And then it has been done in collaboration with associations that support animals in China, because now people, since the epidemic is believed to be originated in an animal market in Wuhan, so people are very sensitive in also protecting animals. And so each say the equivalent of $1 of each SKU which is sold through this live streaming session is donated to these several animals associations, so associations that protects animals in China. This is one
Wow.
example, but another example that is actually from yesterday, that he did a live streaming sessions where he only promoted products made in Wuhan, so from brands that
Oh,
are
very
from
nice.
Wuhan, yeah, to support. So it's a way to keep doing your work of influencer, but for a good cause.
You brought up something important, Gianvito, where, once again, during the crisis, right, we saw a lot of very positive messaging, right, like Save Wuhan, right? I mean, this idea of helping and reaching out and doing whatever, we could globally to help. How do you think that that's changed the fabric of China, that everyone really kind of worked together to kind of get to the other side and was successful?
Yeah, this is something that, first of all, in terms of communication and creative and narrative, the state communication media, they were very active in creating a narrative of putting everyone together, united to fight against the virus. but also all brands, they have been doing, most of them, really positive and practical actions within their field of action or of industry to support society. And just to give you an example, we have, for example, Baidu, which is the equivalent of Google in China, that they increase all their functions in order to use their power of managing data to let consumers have a better follow-up of the epidemic, which means that, for example, if I open Baidu Map, which is the equivalent of Google Map, I can see not only the number of cases that are in my province, but also in my district and where these people have been. So it's in a way to help people to feel safer and to have a better control. Or they even, the same platform, Baidu, they have been running sessions of online consultancy from doctors for free. So it's a way
Oh,
to create, yeah, there is something that has been done for free through this platform, not only related to pneumonia, but even psychological consultancy session to support people that stayed at home for 2 months.
do you have examples of other things that were offered for free or at reduced prices, and either how
Yeah.
did that make the general public feel, kind of better, or how did that change the relationships between the brands and the consumers kind of post-crisis?
Mm-hmm. Another example is the platform is a platform from Alibaba, which is called Aliyun, which is a crowd data sharing platform. So they usually, before the epidemic, in order to access their data, you had to pay. But then during the epidemic, then all their data were free, so accessible for all the research institutes in China. So to fight together against the virus, to try to find a solution. So this is an example. Then we have also an example from the fresh food grocery store belonging to Alibaba, which is Hema, where they started to provide hospitals in Wuhan with fresh food for free. And they even did it with the zoo in Wuhan to feed their animals for free. So it's a way to support the industry. And then you have even smaller like gestures, small examples that create a big impact online. For example, during the epidemic, there was a nurse from a hospital in Wuhan who published a picture on WeChat, which is the equivalent of WhatsApp here in China, where she was tired of she felt the pain of wearing the mask all day, working in a hospital, especially in this part, in the earrings. So she used the handles of a milk box to tie it back the mask in order to decrease the pressure on this part. And so as soon as the brand, actually the milk brand, they saw the message, they donated 15,000
Wow.
box of milks for free to hospitals in Wuhan, together with all the handles that then they could be used in an unconventional way to release the pain of wearing a mask the whole day.
I have there was one video that I saw. Well, I saw it several times, but it also really kind of spoke to my heart, and it's still like imprinted in my mind. Where there was a gentleman who kind of ran in, dropped off free masks, and ran away. And I think that it said so much to me because he didn't want it to be about him. He wanted it to be about like the act of kindness. And I think that when you as just a human being see that, you also want to participate in other acts of kindness. And those types of things, it goes back to, I really think it has to have changed the fabric of the Chinese consumer, and how they think about consuming, what they think about consuming. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, this idea of actually being kind to the others and also rethink about your consumption and buying behavior is really part of what is happening daily here in China. And so we have also brands that and companies that they shared with consumers, also how their internal employees have been kind to the society in China by keep working 7 days a week, 24 hours in order to keep running the operations. I give you the example of Lipai company, which they operate in the soap and cleaning manufacturing products. So they, as soon as there was an outbreak of the epidemic, they asked all the employees to come back, so to give up with their holidays plan, to work 7 days a week, 24 hours, to keep producing everything that was in need by hospitals. And then they said they create a set of videos where they share actually the efforts of the employees with consumers. And then these consumers, these videos, they got viral in China. And so of course, the equity, the perception of the brand and of the company got higher in China, because people are very, local consumers in China are very sensitive about how brands are trying to do something good for the local society in China. And that might be also a hint, something that foreign brands need to take into account if they want to be considered within their local Chinese preferred choice in the future.
That actually leads to one of the poll questions that we can maybe go through, which was the first one. How important is it for local consumers in China that local brands supported the Chinese society during the epidemic? And 85% guessed that it was very important. What would you have thought that would have looked like? And you know, any comments on that, Gianvito?
Yeah, it's it's extremely important actually. These questions come from a survey that has been run in China and then shared on several newspapers, where they asked consumers how much is important for you that local companies support the society by doing something good or by keep running their operations and good quality products, from 1 to 10. So consumers had to give a score, and then the average score has been 8.4 out of 10. So quite high.
Oh, wow.
And then very, very high in terms of perception. And of course, the brands that from this point of view have the highest awareness in China are the brands that show the greatest efforts in supporting local society. So Jingdong, so all the e-commerce platforms, because they also supported the traditional offline retailers through collaborations to release their pressures on all the logistics and related management. Alibaba, Hema, which is the grocery store selling fresh products belonging to Alibaba. Huawei, Meituan, which is also the biggest delivery company in China. So this is the big names on top of consumers' minds, because they really did distinctive actions to support the society in terms of donations or in terms of using their resources to help other companies to evolve their business models.
There's been a lot of discussion on this idea of revenge shopping, which I think is just an interesting way to frame it. Can you talk about, number one, what is revenge shopping, and what are you seeing versus maybe what you expected?
Yeah. Revenge shopping is another narrative that has been very popular in the few weeks in China, where people say that after 2 months of staying at home or not going out, then people would go massively back to what they could not do during the past 2 months, like restaurants, offline shopping, so traveling, so kind of release or your pressure of the past 2 months into categories or into a lifestyle that has been temporarily stopped for the past 2 months. So people expect, according to this narrative, to have a booming in terms of consumption in restaurants, consumptions in the fashion industry, in tourism. But for me, this is, from what we can see, it's more an hope than an actual fact. Because even nowadays that in China, most of the shopping malls, department stores, and restaurants are open. We don't see a traffic as high as before the epidemic. Even in cities such as Shanghai or Beijing, where there is not an healthy emergency anymore, there are no new local cases actually. And we think that one of the reasons why is that there is a shift in consumers' values. So they are much more rational, much more conservative in spending. Also because they have a feeling of uncertainty and instability related to the future. Because for many people in China, actually, keeping their own job and especially the full salary that they used to have before the epidemic, it's a big challenge nowadays. So when people started to feel an unstable income, then even their spending behaviors gets more conservative and traditional.
What are you seeing? I mean, we've heard many, right, in the United States, the approach we've taken has been this idea of furloughing employees, which are kind of temporary layoffs, but to alleviate the, the expense from the, I mean, it's a lot of retailers, but really a lot of companies have approached this. What's been the approach, whether it's for large or small companies, in terms of how they're adjusting how they pay employees?
In terms, we can see that there are two approaches, one more traditional, one more innovative. I would start by the innovative one. The innovative one is co-sharing employees. And it would happen between the e-commerce industry and the traditional restaurant industry. So for example, Hema or Jingdong, which are the e-commerce platform and also the grocery store from Alibaba delivering online. During the epidemic, they had a peak, a strong increase in terms of orders. So they were in a situation of labor shortage. They didn't have enough people to cope with this huge increase of orders in terms of packaging and arranging the deliveries. On the other side, we had restaurant chains offline that they had to shut down for 2 months. So all people working in offline restaurants unemployed. So what happens is that JD, Hema, they temporarily employed people from that used to work in restaurants. They gave them a basic training because for basic tasks such as arranging deliveries and packing and do packaging of food and merchandise. And in this way, they shared and used these employees with restaurant chains. So it was supported as well through platforms for co-sharing, co-using employees. So this was one way, more innovative. Another less innovative way, unfortunately, was to many employees have been asked in several companies to take annual leave, so unpaid annual leave, or the basic salary, the full salary has been reduced to around 30%, so less than 50, and then increased weekly according to the actual number of working hours.
That's very helpful. And then also along these ideas of this new normal, many people had not worked from home before and were required to. And how do you think that this kind of smart working, if you will, how does this like long distance smart working, how does that kind of change the relationships between employees and employers and employees amongst themselves? And now what are you seeing that the emergency in China is over?
Mm-hmm. But from this point of view, we can say that there is a big improvement actually, because now all the works is done online. So it used to be like that in China, but it was a choice. Like companies could keep or not. So there are applications such as TingTalk or WeChat Work that are applications that let you run all the office work, all the paperwork or online. But After the epidemic, all the company had to upgrade their business model in this sense. And so all the administrative paperwork, client management, meetings management, also business trips management is done through these applications. So it is a way to also upgrade all your database in terms of clients, for example, and place them online. Through this application, you can also draft the contract, got it approved by your financial department or legal department online without any printing or paperwork, and then transfer it directly through your clients through the same platform. You can also manage all the health check of your employees through this platform. For example, every day before getting to work, we have to input our body temperature. Then once the HR departments, they got a notification, so we are allowed to enter the company through the application only if we have a temperature below 37, 36.8. And then once we got to the front desk of the company, there is someone checking that the temperature we shared through this long distance smart working app is the actual one of our body. So it's, I would say that it's improved the traditional business models in working, getting everything to digital, and it is something that will be kept even after the epidemic, because it's an improvement in terms of business model. It's much more faster and efficient.
One of the poll questions that I thought was interesting was the second one, which was which consumer group showed the highest increase in online activity, shopping, and entertainment. And, you know, those who responded felt that it was women between the age of 25 and 35, actually almost 3/4. What's the right answer, and what did we see actually amongst those different groups from the data you have?
Actually, it's a tricky question because it's the highest increase compared to the pre-epidemic. So there we have two categories of people where the time and money spent online was already high before the epidemic, which is teenagers and women between 25 and 35 years old. Then those one that actually were not really active users online, or nor in terms of consumption, nor in terms of entertainment, were actually men over 50 years old. That during the epidemic, they had no choice. And so we have seen an increase of not only spending time and money, and also enter in the entertainment, online gaming industry in this specific target segment of the population.
It's really interesting, and actually it's only what I would have guessed from talking to people anecdotally who either live in the US and have their parents in China. And, you know, many of my friends, their parents are in their 70s and 80s, and they said, you know, they didn't have to worry about them at all, because not only were they able to get kind of free healthcare, you know, through WeChat or Baidu or other kind of online platforms, but they literally could get everything delivered. And they said they actually in some ways felt that kind of post the epidemic that their parents were, you know, kind of more self-sufficient and they had to worry about them less. So it really is interesting. And you know, I mean, some of these changes in consumer behavior, which will be long lasting, and you know,
it would
really
be long lasting. And I mean, the epidemic forced us to change some habits, and in some cases it's a change for the better. And so then people really realize how convenient in terms of time, in terms of speed, is relying on these e-commerce platforms to get anything you need, from products to services. And of course, in order to do it, you need to have a system with all the softwares, with all the platforms that can support this evolution. And in China, everything was already there. They just had to speed up and improve it. That's something different from probably US or Europe, where in terms of O2O infrastructure, it's less developed.
Yeah, well, even, and actually we have a question which kind of is really interesting. So is the WeChat live streaming shopping similar to a TV shopping experience, except that the former is on a messaging platform. And it just
Yeah.
goes back to, I mean, right, because here we have QVC and HSN, which I know sales are up significantly, but we don't really have, kind of WeChat or live streaming. So maybe you can kind of just answer that question and, help
Yeah.
us all understand.
It's similar, but more interactive as well. Because when we have a TV selling program, you cannot interact actually with the person who is selling. In live streaming sessions, you can type your comments or message, and then the KOL or the person selling can directly reply and interact with you. So consumers really feel an engagement from the emotional perspective, because those KOLs that they work in live streaming, they are not really salespeople. They are kind of stars. So people really, they have their fans, and so even interacting with them for consumers from the emotional perspective is something that is really stimulating and enriching. And also the way you process the order is also much faster, because you don't need to call, you just select on your screen the product, and then you pay using your WeChat wallet or your Alipay wallet.
One of the, I think, changes that will come out of this, kind of crisis is what we've heard from some of the retailers. So, Nordstrom's, Bloomingdale's, Saks, Neiman's, Bergdorf's, et cetera, those who have kind of, kind of a customer book. What we've heard is that they've been doing a great job to, for outreach, not only in terms of sales, but really to check in on their clients. And this may change the relationship and I think in a positive way, right? It's not just transactional. It's more about, right, I care about you. I want to, understand kind of, can I be there for you in another way? And we are seeing that, at least in the US, it's great in terms of some of the changes we're seeing between, human connections. All right, so we have a few more questions. Can you comment on the penetration of voice recognition technology into the immersive customer experience in China, especially during the epidemic?
The voice recognition technology, it was actually something that even before the epidemic was already quite strong in China, because we used voice recognition technology first of all to activate all the platform that we use. For example, if I want to turn on my music on my phone, or I want to place an order, then I can do it in China through voice recognition technology. But what is even more interesting is that voice recognition technology is used in China even in banks. So when you have, because all the transactions actually have to be done, are already fully online in China, but then even during the epidemic, they had to turn 100% online. And then by recognizing your voice, it was a way also to not to have to input your password during online transactions. So it was a way to access directly your account online just by using your voice.
Great. And then besides the social responsibility approach, is there any difference between Chinese brands and global brands on marketing to drive sales?
In terms of, I would say, in terms of social responsibilities, what we have seen here in China, that brands really almost get rid of any commercial content to go more for a really social relevant content. I give you an example of, for example, InnoHerb, which is a historic cosmetic brand from Shanghai. So they create a video for their consumers at home, where first of all, they promoted a healthy daily routine at home by doing sports, by eating well. And then of course, part of the routine is also doing your daily skincare. So at that moment, they place their product within the video. So it's kind of the brands in helping you to have a healthy lifestyle. So it's really seen as an help more than an act to boost your products or your sales within a video. So this is an example. And another example, there's been an e-commerce platform called Yition in China that they had already paid for their outdoor advertising, for their commercial advertising between February 23rd and 28th, and then they replaced all the outdoor advertising with this message saying, you don't need to look at this advertising, just stay at home and wait for the spring to come. So it was a way also to, even by a message, to show
Right.
that you are socially responsible.
Very
And this
nice.
is very highly appreciated by consumers.
So I'm going to ask you one last question, and want to also thank you for all your time. But with this shift in values, or really shift in priorities between, kind of life at home, so whether it was at-home fitness or eating healthier versus social lives, right? And kind of what people wore and anything, going out to restaurants. Can you talk? I mean, I know that question could take 30 minutes to respond to, because there's so much there. But can you highlight for us, just so, we in the West can maybe think about, kind of how to position retailers and brands, and kind of as they kind of go through this crisis, and what things might look like on the other side.
Mm-hmm. So brands, I mean, the way they are acting here in China, and probably a solution to show that you are close to your consumers with this shift of values, is to try to understand, first of all, how consumers' values changed, and so how what your brand offers is relevant for those values. So even by selling clothes or by selling fashion items that probably in such a difficult situation are considered less necessary, each brand is able, by showing that they are green, by showing that they are sustainable, or by showing even that, for example, dressing well is part of a daily habit, even if you stay at home, for example. So if you change your narrative from something fancy or commercial to something that is more good for yourself, good for your daily routine, it can help to create a message which is more relevant for consumers. So relevant, we think, is really the key words to understand how to shift your offer and your communication in order to cope with this shift of values. And we believe that any brand in any industry could be relevant for consumers if they understand how values of consumers are changing. And one challenge probably for foreign brands willing to sell in China is taking into account that local consumers in China are getting more supportive for their local brands. So made in China, because it's a way to support your country. And so the challenge is how, for a foreign brand, how to be relevant by being a foreign brand for a local consumer. So probably a clever way would be doing something in terms of communications or PR activity or on social that shows that in a way we support China. Such as Dior, for example, that when they ran the live streaming fashion show, before they did a campaign on WeChat by sharing supporting messages for Wuhan on their social media.
Right. Well, it's nice to see brands, globally, who are so in touch in terms of the right approach. And, there's a lot that they've learned in China, which they can then take to other markets, because, everybody wants that feeling of support right now. And it's great to see some of those examples. So with that, Gianvito, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you so much. This was incredible. For all of those on the line, we're going to have Gianvito back for a Coresight Classroom to just really kind of go through data and a lot of his findings. And we want to thank you in advance for that. And if you have any questions, we can provide his contact information. Thanks again.
Thanks for your invitation. Have a nice day.